Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Mayor de Blasio is receiving criticism from some members of the Latino community who say they think City Hall is not paying enough attention to their concerns. My next guest has been an outspoken critic of the mayor, and he joins me now to explain his position in today's Friday conversation. Angelo Falcón is the president of the National Institute for Latino Policy. Thanks for coming in. Always glad to see you.
No, nice to be here. And also, I'm not a critic. I'm an advocate on behalf of the Latino community, so critic makes it sound like I don't like the guy.
Well, analyst.
Analyst,
yeah.
I actually like the guy, and actually all we've been trying to do is bring to his attention an area where he can improve, and he can be a more effective mayor, and also basically be true to his campaign promise of making the city government more reflective of diversity.
Fair enough. Now, last year, what I think was probably the first protest of the mayor at City Hall was a group of Latinos. They started calling him one-term Bill. It's the first time I'd ever heard that. And saying that he wasn't doing enough to promote and advance Latinos within his administration. And you were writing about the same theme around the same time. For many people, and in fact, put up our graphic, because this is what I think most of our viewers think, because it was the first thing I thought. You and I talked about this before. We look at the mayor's office: Deputy Mayor Lilian Barrios Paoli, School Chancellor Carmen Farina, ACS Commissioner Gladys Carrion, the Probation Commissioner, the Oaths Commissioner is Fidel Del Valle. So you look at these folks and you say, okay, what's the problem?
Well, the problem is that we've been tracking the mayor's appointment of Latinos actually since 2013 when he got elected, when he set up the transition team and he set up his inauguration committee.
Yes.
And right there we started finding problems. We started seeing that compared to Koch, compared to Giuliani, compared to Bloomberg, he actually had a smaller percentage of Latinos on his transition team and even his inauguration committee. We said, oh, okay, well, he's just starting out. Then at the beginning in January, when his first month, he makes these terrific appointments. Farina, Lilian Barrios Paoli, Gladys Carrion, we think terrific people.
Yes.
And we estimated about 26% of his appointments that were announced were of Latinos. However, as we track this, we see this downward spiral. Where today we're talking about Latinos making up less than 12% of his total appointments since he started.
Well, let's look at it. You have a chart that sort of shows this, and you're suggesting that over time things change. So I guess this is the overall where you're saying.
Yeah. And what we find is that Latinos right now are the most underrepresented group in his appointments. For the most part, what's going on is that whites are totally overrepresented, so we're continuing that pattern of white privilege, if you want to put it that way. Blacks and Asians also underrepresented, but not as badly as Latinos. So there's a real difference here in terms of that pattern over time of the decline in attention to the appointment of Latinos, and we're concerned because it represents a problem. One, we like to have be a part of decisions that are being made in the city government in a significant way. We also understand that historically, public sector employment has been an economic driver for many communities in terms of the middle class. You had Paul Moses here on last week talking about the relationship between Italians and the Irish and the role of public sector employment. You go back to Glazer and Moynihan's Beyond the Melting Pot, where they made it clear that ethnicity.
Well, yeah, let me just wrestle the numbers to the ground just to make sure we all know what we're talking about. What number would make you feel comfortable? What percentage of either the Latino population or the Latino workforce of the city's workforce is Latino?
Well, Latinos make up about 25% of the city's workforce.
Okay.
So the difference between 25% and only 12% in terms of appointments is a big gap. Now we don't put out any numbers, anything like that in terms of goals. What we want to see is a good faith effort, and we've been trying to get a meeting with the mayor for all this time, and we've given up on that. That's been one of the reasons why at the press conference that the Campaign for Fair Representation had back in November last year, why the term one-term mayor came up a lot as a chant, was because the mayor was showing a lot of disrespect to our community. He was refusing to even meet with us to discuss the issue.
Okay, well, let me ask, we'll get to that in just a second. I should say for the record that the mayor's office says that their number is not 12%, but 15%, which even if you take them at their word, you're still saying that's too low, right?
Well, it's too low, and also we don't know what that number consists of. Our analysis, and we've done extensive analysis of the numbers, we break it down by commissionerships, directorships, by people that are on boards and commissions. Their number, they just kind of pop up with these numbers. In all the time that we've done this analysis, over time, they've never corrected us. They've never sat down to say, look, you've done this, it is incorrect. What they do is they throw out some number. I have no idea what 15% means. I don't know if it's what it's based on. We've asked them to provide us with the information in terms of the appointments. They won't do it. So what we've had to do is develop a strategy where we look at their publicly announced appointments. So we look at the mayor, who he basically, from his press releases, he announces, also who appears in the media. That's been the way we've been doing it.
Yes.
And basically, we have no choice. And we've waited for them and asked them to react to that, and they haven't said anything. It's just when it hits the fan, then they come up with some number, 14%, 15%.
We talked about this recently with Arnie Segarra, who sort of gave the administration's point of view. But before I play you a little excerpt from that interview and ask you to respond, I did want to bring up the issue of when it comes to appointments, there were almost no Latino politicians who supported the mayor back in the primary in 2013 when it really counted, right? So Melissa Mark Viverito, I think, was probably the most prominent one, right. And we know how that worked out for her. She got a lot of support from the mayor, and it enabled her to become speaker. On some level, strictly politically speaking, it's not as if the administration is duty-bound to, take phone calls or referrals or accept resumes from a bunch of officials who were trying to who worked against him in 2013.
Well, the point is that we're not political. I'm not involved in partisan politics. We're talking about hiring the best people possible. I hate to think that 1/3 of the city's population does not include some of the best people in the city that can do these jobs, regardless of their political affiliation. Mm-hmm. So in the straight political terms, you're absolutely right. It's retribution on the part of this administration, the so-called progressive administration, but it's a retribution that's really working against the interests of the Latino community in general. Look, if he has problems with the Bronx machine, mm-hmm. Hey, deal with the Bronx machine, but don't take it out on the entire Latino community, and that's exactly what he's doing.
That's fair enough. Here's what Arnie Segarra had to say, a little bit of what he had to say on Inside City Hall last week. Let's take a look.
My thing is that he's a progressive mayor, and he's looking to all communities in the city. We're talking about specifically about the Latino community. He's only been in office 18 months after 20 years of a different mindset. Sit down and look at the quality of the appointments that he has made.
So aside from jobs, and believe me, as the son of a civil servant, sure. I get it, that it's really important to get city jobs, not at the top necessarily, but really all the way down the line. Right. But apart from that, are there sort of substantive policy issues that are where the community is getting short shrift or cultural insensitivity? Well,
we don't know. We don't know because we don't have advocates within, people from the Latino community on the inside being part of the discussion. If you looked at the interview by Arnie Segarra, for example, when he talked about quality appointments, the two examples he gave were not Latinos, Bratton and Anthony Shores. I'm going, geez, this guy's supposed to be over here advocating on behalf of the Latino community in terms of the mayor. Uh-huh. He can't even come up with Latino names. So people like Gladys Carrion and people like Lillian Paoli, it wasn't even on his radar, and he's over here advocating things. No, I think the issue is we're concerned as we look at the critique. Our critique is that it's around the appointments, not around the rest of his program. Mm-hmm. Now, the concern we have about the rest of his program, whether it's pre-K, whether it's with paid sick leave, the things that they've trotted out, is that we're concerned about the possibility of something what we're beginning to call trickle-down progressivism. And that is like when you talk about trickle-down economics, that these things will flow to our community. We're concerned about, when you talk about affordable housing, how does that affect the poorest community in this city, which is Latinos with the highest poverty rate, the lowest incomes? Is this really going to reach our community? Those are the kind of concerns we have, and we think it's important to have Latinos, people who know the community, inside the city bureaucracy, being part of those discussions. Mm-hmm. Now, I hate to have a situation where they ignore us, the specific situation of Latinos, and then down the road, as they announce these plans, we start noticing it's not reaching our community. There's a chance now to really talk about diversity, including Latinos, including other communities, in a way that avoids that problem. And to talk about, he's only been in office 18 months. Well, he's only been in office for white people for 18 months, for Asian people, for blacks. How come Latinos are the ones in 18 months are getting screwed and not everybody else in the same way? The 18-month thing is ridiculous. And to have that kind of representation, that's the other thing that really broke my heart. Arnie Segarra is a very nice guy, but he's a terrible representative, and quite frankly, it was an embarrassment to our community to have someone like that making those kind of arguments.
Okay, I know this is not going to be the last time we talk about this. We'll continue to watch the numbers and watch your very informative newsletters and other reports that come out of the Institute. Thank you so much for coming by tonight.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now. Coming up, political consultant Michael Oliva will join me to break down 2 judicial elections that may not be getting a lot of attention, but have serious importance for thousands of New Yorkers. Later on tonight, the 4 members of our Friday Reporters Roundtable will weigh in on the mayor's new preoccupation with Times Square. We're back in a minute.